Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to our panel with Henry Thomas. I'm Connie. I work here at the library, and I am just going to introduce him. Henry Thomas, he's a well-known actor who was the star of the classic E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and lately he's been in the Netflix series The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor. And we're here today to discuss his book, The Window and the Mirror. It was released in 2018. And if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will get to them. First, we're going to discuss his book. And so if you have any questions about that, put it in the chat and we will be answering those, okay? And I'd like to introduce our moderator, Jean Turner, and take it away.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for coming to Pop Madness, Henry. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Well, of course, we know you're an actor and musician and now an author. What made you want to write a book and where did the idea come from?
Well, I've always wanted to write. I mean, I've always written a bit, mostly screenplays in the past, but I really wanted to delve into the fantasy world because I'm a big fan of fantasy and I always have been. And I was a big Dungeons and Dragons nerd in school when I was a kid. So it's always been something that has interested me. And so, yeah, I have a lot of leisure time as a freelance artist. You know, I'm not always employed, and even when I'm employed, there's a lot of downtime.
Right.
So, you know, I started plinking away at the typewriter probably about 2014, and I kind of worked on it earnestly for about a year, and then I published it through the help of Rare Bird Books, which is a co-publishing company, after shopping it around to a lot of big houses for a while and not getting any results. But yeah, but it was actually published in the spring of 2019. So it's still relatively new on the shelves.
Okay, great. Well, for people who haven't read the book yet, could you give us a little bit of the story?
Yeah, it's a fantasy, a high fantasy novel set in a world that is run by kind of a mageocracy. You know, the wizards have seized control from the nobles, and we find our heroes sort of as this battle is happening between a primitive culture and a technologically superior culture sort of next door to them. There's a struggle there, and a soldier is taken prisoner, and this soldier must undertake a journey with an ambassador of this race to try and prevent a war that could be happening as a result of this incursion. So that's sort of the first premise in a nutshell, premise of the first novel.
Okay, cool. Well, you said in the Express News interview that the first book is kind of a Wizard of Oz, and this will be more Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of charted the story arc through 3 distinct novels. But I also, as I'm writing it, I think it may evolve into a quartet rather than a trilogy. But as I laid it out, it was going to be The Wizard of Oz, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the King, sort of for the finale. And that's just in a broad kind of story arc way. It's not really indicative of any content.
Okay. Well, who are some of your favorite authors and how did they influence your writing?
Well, when I was a kid, as far as fantasy authors go, I read Lloyd Alexander's book. He's most famous for, I mean, most people know him because of Disney's Black Cauldron. Mm-hmm. The Black Cauldron was the title of a book in a series of books called the Britain Chronicles. And those were very influential to me as a kid. And then I read Terry Brooks, and I moved on to Robert Jordan and George R.R. Martin, and those kind of big series inspired me to sort of build a world and create this setting for this fantasy story.
Well, I'm sure glad you did. I know, yeah.
Yeah, I thank you. But I mean, aside from fantasy authors, I think, you know, some of my favorite writers are Cormac McCarthy. I also I really like Roald Dahl, and I've read a lot of Larry McMurtry as well, and all these writers I like. I especially like Cormac McCarthy's dialogue and limited description and things like that. And I tried to infuse my novel with a little of that as well.
Okay, great. Well, I know you narrated a few Star Wars books. Was it made it easier for you to narrate your own book?
Yeah, I enjoyed doing the books on tape. And this was nice because, of course, I was familiar with the story already, having written it. But I did trip myself up a few times because I had never meant for any of this writing to be read aloud. So I gave myself a few challenges. And as I'm writing the second installment in the series now, I'm conscious of it, so it's always on my mind.
Okay. Well, we know you ended the book on a cliffhanger. How many books are going to be in the series, and where are you currently on the second book?
Yeah, I'm still in the first act on the second book, and it was originally laid out to be 3 books. I think it still remains to be seen if it's going to stay at 3 or grow to 4, and that will be decided by the end of this book.
Okay, so could we see any more like Ryla Derns and her airship maybe as a side project in the future?
Well, she still has a really big part to play in the main story. And she'll be a main character in the second book. Okay. And it'll kind of focus on Joth and Nihilith and the Phantom General, Lord Illithane, and the airship crew for most of the story.
Okay, great. Well, I know Connie has some more questions about the book, so I'll turn it over to her. If you want to pop back on, Connie.
Yeah. So you said that the captain, she'll have more of a role and coming up. She was my favorite character from the book. It kind of
great.
It kind of reminded me, the airships kind of reminded me a little bit of the Terry Brooks. You know, he has some airships, but except for, you know, different. But yeah, I loved that character. I mean, I think she should have her own book. So I definitely like that.
She definitely has a very interesting story, and she has a lot. She has a big role to play in the future books of the series. Yeah. She's here to stay.
Cool.
For a while at least. Yeah.
Are you going to get into maybe more of her backstory, like how she became an airship captain, or maybe that could be for a novella?
Maybe it'll come up. I mean, you'll definitely learn more about her, but a lot of it, you know, a lot of it is going to play out with the dynamic between her and the airship crew and the recently discovered Lord Illithane, because the captain has a very limited view of what's happening in the world, and the general has a pretty good idea and a pretty good handle on things. So it's going to create some friction in the second book, because a lot of things that she wants to do are simply impossible with the general on board. So it's going to make for some good drama in the second book.
Yeah, I figured the general would come in more, since he had such a, he's at the beginning and then at the end, and they keep saying he's running from something. So I assume we'll find out what he's running from, and that will play more into it.
I mean, in large part, he's running from his past and his failures, but also, the general is a bit like modeled a bit on Hannibal, as if Rome were the magistry, public enemy number one would be the Lord Illithane, and they would like nothing more than to put his specter to rest by beheading him publicly or something, because if they don't, then these little rebellions can keep cropping up, and it's a pain.
Whereas Lord Olmec definitely has to die at some point. No, he's so evil.
Yeah, he's a sociopath.
He's very hard to read. It was very hard to read his sections. But
he's mentally disturbed. And now even more so, because he's dealing with these energies that are playing with his sanity at a higher level.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a lot of fun to write Lord Olmec's sections, because sometimes they just get too out of hand.
Okay, I have a couple of questions from the group. It says, did your kids influence any of the characters in the novel?
Yeah, sure, they did. I mean, I think all the people that I know have influenced certain characteristics, and yeah, you find yourself putting personalities that into these characters.
And one asked, did you set out to write a strong woman character?
I set out to write good characters that were well defined, and I don't enjoy kind of two-dimensional sort of, I mean, it's not interesting to me as a reader or a writer to read about a stereotype, because I know it already, and I don't think people are that simple. I mean, maybe in broad strokes, but like I always like to think of it like, if you're reading about a guy that makes candlesticks, that's not very interesting. But if he has a love of the violin, then suddenly you got an amazing story. And I think it's boring to read about weak women stereotypes, that are familiar because it's in a fantasy world of, but this isn't medieval Europe, this is Asteria. So there are a lot of similarities in technology, but this isn't in a Christian framework. It's not in a masculine, feminine framework. It's its own world. So I tried to make it familiar, but I also tried to make it distinct.
one person asked, can you share any funny D&D stories, especially any that inspired your writing, if there were any that inspired your writing?
Yeah, well, I played D&D with a few friends of mine that I had known for a long time, and we had these long running campaigns that kind of stretched on and on. But part of the inspiration for some of Lord Olmet's antics came from a friend of mine who always insisted that he was playing a certain alignment that wasn't really evil, you know, it was sort of like straddling the line of good and evil, you know. So, but he just did that so that he could get away with things, like without experience penalties or something within the rules. It was like a loophole argument for, you know, D&D morality.
Yeah.
And anyway, like that was a running joke, because he always said he was playing chaotic neutral, and we always said he was playing neutral greedy. So Olmet is a little neutral greedy for power, but he's actually, if he had a D&D alignment, it would be neutral evil, I think.
Neutral evil. Yeah. Let's see. Another question is, do you think you would ever be interested in adapting your books for a TV or a movie, for TV show or movie?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you know, it would be a dream to sell the intellectual property and develop it. You know, originally I had wanted to write the novels and possibly look into making a graphic novel of the series. But I would love to develop it as a television show, or live action or animated. I think it would work.
Oh yeah, good.
But I have to sell a lot of copies before that that is even a possibility.
Yeah, that's true. And after, you know, Game of Thrones, it's kind of like everybody wants to get their fantasy book.
And the thing is, you know, it's like the studios went and bought up a lot of intellectual properties of the big fantasy chains. Like we will see Wheel of Time, you know, the Robert Jordan series. You know, I don't know what they're going to do with books 6 through 12 or whatever, but I mean, good luck with that.
Right. I mean,
I don't know. Maybe you could compress that into like half a season.
I know. I started the Wheel of Time earlier this year, and I had to stop it after about book 5. I was just like tired, you know, because it's such a long series. So
it should be called the Well of Time.
I mean, I thought, you know, George R.R. Martin wrote a lot, but that was some crazy. Okay, let's see. Also a question, do you, she asked, many of her thoughts have stemmed from listening to great songs. Do like songs stimulate your inspiration to write?
Yeah, actually, when I was writing this novel, and when I write, as I'm writing now, on the second installment, I listen to music. I mostly listen to classical music when I write, because it's there, but it's kind of non-intrusive, and it just sort of keeps my mind going.
Okay. Let's see if anything's. I have a question about D&D. What is your favorite and least favorite original D&D monster? And then they put any thoughts on the owl bear. I don't know what that is.
Oh yeah, the owl bear is good. Yeah. What's the other one? The bullet, right? Or something. Yeah, these strange characters. I don't know. I always thought Rust monsters were sort of extra cool, you know. Like they could just destroy your magic items. It just seemed like a snarky DM thing to do, you know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know much about original D&D characters. My friend made up his own called the Bat Shark. And and you never ever wanted bat sharks to come because things were really bad. They were horrible and hard to kill. So
that sounds awful. Yeah.
So, but that was his own thing he came up with. Okay, it looks like that's about it for the books, and I'll turn it back to Gene, and he's going to ask you a few questions about your Netflix series. Okay?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Connie.
Yes, and of course, we know to recently been in 2 Netflix series, The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor. Congratulations on the popularity of those series too.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it was a real pleasant surprise to see that we had been well with Bly. We were #1 in the world for streaming for a couple of months, which was amazing.
Great to hear. Yeah. Yeah, of course. And we know Hill House, of course, is based on the novel by Shirley Jackson, and Bly Manor is based on The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. Did you read either of these books before you took on the roles?
Not before, but afterwards. Yeah. Okay. I think, well, I had read the Turn of the Screw a long time ago, I think in school or something, but yeah, very loosely based, you know. There are a lot of themes that run through, but Mike Flanagan, the showrunner for both of those shows, and the director that's been hiring me for the last 4 years, like I've been working with him almost exclusively. You know, he turns those genres, those stories on their head, in terms of bringing it to the horror genre.
What I really liked was your dialect. Did you have a specific dialect coach? Because you sound like you try to pinpoint a part of England or London almost.
Well, it was more of it was more of a class kind of pinpoint. You know, he was very upper crust sort of a fellow, so I had to have a very I mean, the accent is almost a caricature now because, you know, people are kind of like, "Whoa, do people really talk like that?" But yeah, they do actually, and the very wealthy, that's their accent.
Yeah.
So I questioned it a few times, but I was working with a very good dialect coach, and he was based in Vancouver, where we were filming, and his name's Doug Abrams. And after my first session with him, I was like, "Doug, is that too much? I mean, do I sound like I'm doing a cartoon accent?" He's like, "You know, it's going to feel like that at first because, you know, it's just, it's weird to you, but I promise you, you got it." So it was kind of a leap of faith, and a lot of those things are, you know.
Yeah. Well, in both of these series, of course, you were working with child actors. Did you find it easy working with children, or did you draw on some of your own experiences as being a child actor?
Well, you know, I enjoy working with the kids that I've worked with in Bly and Hill House, because Mike Flanagan hires very competent actors, you know, kids and adults. Mm-hmm. But thankfully, I mean, the kids that I worked with on both of these shows were so much better prepared than I ever was when I was a kid actor. So I have no grounds to give them any pointers. They could probably give me pointers.
Great, great. I like to say I was really surprised by your character's evil side, the way he sort of was shown. That was a shock. That
Yeah, his doppelganger alter ego, sort of. He was called Shadow Henry in the script, but yeah, it was odd because originally, they were going to enhance the Gren with computer graphics, and so when I was performing it, I had that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even really think that what I was doing was going to be on screen at the end.
Okay.
But they liked it and they went without the computer graphics because my face was scary enough, Jim.
Well, you're an actor, so you did a good job, I believe. So I loved it. It was a big shock to me. So,
thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think we may have some more Q&A with Connie here.
Yeah, great.
I have some other. Yeah, I found that really, really creepy too. That smile. Your face must have hurt at the end of the day doing that smile.
Yeah. Well, I did it thinking that they were going to enhance it, so I didn't really think about what it looked like. I was just trying to grin as largely as I could.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really scary. I found that kind of scary. Let's see. There's a question here about, do you have any plans to do a book on being, in E.T. and the life after the film was released, or maybe even a autobiography?
The old actor's cash grab, maybe. maybe. Yeah, I would. If I did, I would call it Henry Thomas, Take Me Out and Shoot Me, A Life in Film.
That's your working title, huh? Okay.
Yeah, Take Me Out and Shoot Me.
Okay. Yeah, I always have in mind what I would have my biography be, but of course I'm not famous, but I never know. The tale of an unknown person. I don't know. All right.
I could use some money by Henry Thomas.
That's great. I love it.
That might make more money than The Window in the Mirror, I think. Maybe I should have thought this through.
No.
Too bad I had a story to tell.
Right. Yeah. No. Don't stop with the Window in the Mirror, because I need to know more, and I will hunt you down if you don't finish it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And it says, this one is a question from Rebecca. It says, being both an actor and an author, which do you enjoy the most and find the most rewarding?
Well, personally, it's really rewarding for me to write and work on this world, because I created it all. And as an actor, you don't usually have that much creative say in things. You're kind of facilitating the writers and the directors' vision of things for the most part. So, and I enjoy both things, don't get me wrong, but there's something about being your own boss, in the sense of everything you're doing is a decision that you're making that's empowering and fun.
Yeah. Let's see. This is another kind of a D&D comment. D&D has become very popular, of course, now in mainstream because of Stranger Things and Ready Player One. Do you still play D&D? Are you enjoying seeing all the references in different, TV shows and stuff?
Well, yeah, I introduced D&D to my kids. So my son, who's 10, is really into it. And that's the age I was really into it. But he's not exclusively into it. Like when I was a kid, there weren't I mean, video games weren't on the level that they are now. I mean, but I mean, D&D was the original RPG, so it inspired a lot of these RPG games, at least in the sense of the spirit of them. So, you know, it's kind of cool. It's interesting. It's interesting that D&D has made a comeback. I know my kids enjoy it, and it's exciting for them that there isn't a board and there aren't pieces, and all we need is dice and paper.
Yeah,
you know, that's kind of cool.
They're not into like the miniatures, or, you know.
I'm not into the miniatures. I stopped playing with miniatures years ago, but I used to like to paint miniatures.
Yeah.
But I always got bogged down with the minutia, with the, you know, movement rates, and, you know, no, that's, you can't cast a fireball, that's out of range, that kind of stuff, you know. It's like we were always like, you know, don't.
That's like the teens do. They don't really, usually the teen groups that play here at the library, they don't like worry about how many spaces you're away. It's just more about the story, you know.
I mean, maybe like once in a while, like if it's really, you know, if it depends upon it or something, but you know, like if there's a discrepancy or something, then, you know. But I always got tired of those kind of like bean counter campaigns of like the guys going, no, sorry, you're dead. You know,
your magic missile didn't go that far. I
know. You're dead because I rolled the die and it told me that you're dead, and I'm the dungeon master, and so, you know, we're not going to play anymore because you're dead.
I have a friend who's still mad at our other friend for killing his paladin off. So I think they've been feuding about that for the last 30 years. So
see, I know. Yeah, it's like
never give that up.
Far-reaching consequences.
I know, right? Let's see, other questions. Let's see, trying to hold on. Oh, I have one. I guess they want to know if you ever might write a horror book, I guess, because you've been in some horror in the past.
You know, it's funny because I work a lot in horror, mainly because when the independent cinema disappeared, horror cinema kind of took its place, in the sense that if I want to go get funding for a film, and I'm a kind of beginning director, fledgling director, it's probably going to be easiest for me to get funding for a film if it's in the horror genre. Right? Just nature of the business. It's easy to sell those. So to distributors, right? So as a consequence, I started working in horror because it was the most available work for me to work in. And Mike Flanagan is the director that's been hiring me, and he primarily works, or is known for his work in the horror genre. So it just kind of, you know, it was just kind of serendipity. It wasn't through any personal interest of mine in horror. And I don't know, I don't really get horror ideas, but if I did, I know how to write horror, because all you have to do is you build everything up for 2 acts. And it can be anything, and it doesn't have to have anything to do with the premise of the story or anything, because in the 3rd act you can write something completely different, and then you just destroy everything that you built in acts 1 and 2. The end. Horror novel. That's it. I just have to figure out a good premise that hasn't been taken.
That's true. Aren't you going to do another project with Mike Flanagan, or has it already been shot?
It's already been shot. It's called Midnight Mass. It's another show for Netflix. I'm not sure when it's going to be released, but we completed it, by the holidays last year, and so it should be out sometime this year.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering, is it another creepy sort of?
It's a creepy, but it's a very heartfelt show that takes place in an island community. It kind of centers around this community kind of coming together after the arrival of this charismatic young priest.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it's a limited series. It's like 7 or 8 episodes. I can't remember.
Oh, okay, cool. And are you working on anything right now? I mean, I know there's the pandemic, but have you been working on anything?
Things have been slow since the holidays. Spring is kind of the gear up time for filming and for new projects to start. So I have a film that's going late in the spring, probably in Los Angeles, and then that's all I have.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's been difficult for you, as is everybody, to be in this pandemic and be locked down and not. Yeah,
it's been strange. I mean, I also do a lot of convention appearances, and I rely on that for a considerate portion of my income, and that went out the window. So that was a big adjustment.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, let's see. I don't think we have any more questions. I haven't seen any. I think I asked them all.
Okay, great.
But thank you very much for being here today. I wish we could have had you in person, because I would have loved for you to sign my copy of the book, but maybe next time.
I'll do it next time I'm in San Antonio, and I always love to have an excuse to get there. So,
okay.
Next time I see you, I will, and maybe I'll have the second book done by then. So
I hope so.
Okay.
I look forward to that. All right.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for the questions, and thanks for reading.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Henry. Appreciate you being with us today.
Bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.